If you are a Golgari lover and are interested in this deck, this video is for you. I will be going over the commander, the sub-commander, the contents of the deck to show how amazing this deck could possibly be. But before I go any further, a quick word from our sponsor, which again is me. I have a small little Etsy shop where I make t-shirts and hoodies with funny designs when it comes to like card games and stuff like that, and references that people enjoy or don't enjoy. They come in multiple colours and multiple sizes and really good quality, so if you want to help out this channel, like and subscribe, but buy some of the merch because it helps the channel quite a lot. So you probably clicked on this video knowing what the commander is, but can't be bothered about the context of the deck. So you want someone to help you out and help you decide if this deck is worth buying or not. So this video is right for you. So let's start it off with the commander.
Winter, cynical opportunist, true generic Mana-owned black Mana-owned green mono legendary creature. Human warlock death touch whenever winter attacks. Mill 3 cards. Delirium, at the beginning of your end step. You may exile any number of cards from your graveyard with 4 or more card types among them. If you do, put a permanent card from among them onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. 2/5.
4 mana for a 2/5 is quite good. I usually go for 5 or less mana when it comes to my commander unless they have a broken ability. 2/5 is kind of okay, but it has death touch and that's what matters. This is a great blocker and that's what you needed to do. Getting rid of quite a few threats, so you're able to then sneak in and attack to get that beautiful mill trigger. But why are you milling yourself, you say? Because of the Delirium. This commander is great for graveyard recursion. Creature dies, it either makes a token or has a really good ETB effect or is a very powerful creature. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Wait, you have 4 more creature types in your graveyard. I'm gonna replay it with a finality counter. Now, because there is a black pip in it, there is ways to get rid of counters, so be careful when you do that, but I say that any card that gets rid of counters is great for this deck. Before we even go on to this deck, this is quite a fun and unique commander, especially because Delirium is such a weird ability, but it is very good. So overall this commander is a great blocker. It mills itself, which is great. It has mill, which is great, and then it has an effect that lets you bring back the most annoying and powerful creatures in your deck. But with every commander there is a sub-commander, and the sub-commander of this deck is
Rindmaw, Creaking Nest 3 generic Mana-owned black Mana-owned green mono legendary artifact creature. Scarecrow Menace, reach when Rindmaw, Creaking Nest enters and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types. Each player creates a tap 2/2 blackbird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. They attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. 5/5.
5 mana for a 5/5 with Menace and Reach is good mainly because it has 2 keywords. This card is great to attack and defend because it has Menace, so it's great to attack, and it has Reach, so it's great to defend. And then it has an ability I have never seen before. When it enters or ETBs, it gives your opponents 2/2 birds. That is very strange. Why would they do that? Oh yeah, just to give you a heads up, they're goaded. So pretty much you have a great blocker and an attacker, and they have great attackers that attack each other. So it's pretty much like he's standing there surrounded with a tornado of birds just attacking everyone around him, which is a great ability, especially for 5 mana. I think when it comes to this deck, it is a great commander and a great sub-commander that I couldn't really decide which one would be better to start off with. But now let's go on to the context of the deck, starting off with Planeswalkers. In this deck there is 4 Planeswalkers. That is very, very rare. Usually when it comes to this, there's only ever 1, but they have been downsizing and underpowering Planeswalkers for the last little while, so it's good to see that they're actually putting a few more in here, and some are really good Planeswalkers. In this deck you get
Grist, the Hunger Tide, Ob Nixilis Reignited, Professor Onyx, Renin 7.
I find at least half of these to be very good and powerful Planeswalkers, especially for this deck, or in general. To be honest, a part of me would, if I didn't have them all, be very interested in this deck just for the amount of Planeswalkers and the spice they bring. So now let's go on to the creatures. When it comes to this deck, there's 28 creatures in total, but you get really cool creatures just like
Demolisher Spawn, Giant Ataphage, Grim Flayer, Hornet Queen, Ishkana, Grafwood Owl, Moldrath Monstrosity, Noxious Cheer Hulk, Old Stick Fingers, Titania, Nature's Force, Ursine Monstrosity.
So there's some cards I'm kind of shocked that are in here, but some are really, really good. It's one of those things, it depends how you play. To be honest, with the creatures so far and the Planeswalkers, I could see this deck perhaps being a very good upgrade for other decks that do similar things, or a lot of cards that are quite good that for collectors. Like, there is a handful of creatures in here that are very good and quite difficult to get your hands on. So now on to the spells of the deck. In this deck there's 15 spells in total, but you get
Reanimate, Arachnogenesis, Convert to Slime, Culling Ritual, Deluge of Doom, Formless Genesis, Inscription of Abundance.
When it comes to the spells, they're okay. There's a lot of cards here that are just generic good stuff, and there's like the usual cards that would fit into a Commander Precon, but there's nothing that I personally think gives that extra little bit of spice. There's nothing that when I look at instants or sorceries go, I really want that, or wow, that's more powerful than I actually originally think it is. Spells, in my opinion, are just perfectly meh. They're kind of generic. Now onto the enchantments. In this deck there is 9 enchantments in total, but you get
Whip of Erebus, Polluted Cistern, Into the Pit, Demonic Covenant, Deadbridge Chant, Cemetery Tampering.
This is where majority of what I call the spice is in this deck when it comes to the creatures and the enchantments. When it comes to a deck like this, there's usually the section that's a high point, and then there's a section that's the low point. To be honest, I think the enchantments and the creatures are the high point of this deck so far. Where it comes to the spells and sorceries are kind of the mid-range lower end. But you do get fair few really good enchantments that I'm actually happy to see. And now we're going on to the artifacts of this deck. When it comes to the artifacts, there is 7 in total, and they're all ramp. I'm not excited about the artifacts at all. I know usually when a Commander Precon comes out, you get your Soul Ring, your Arcane Insignia, and then a few little ramp cards. But there's usually 1 or 2 artifact cards that are quite good, or at least playable in some form of deck, or you just kind of just like they exist. The fact that all of them are ramp is kind of a bit meh. This, in my opinion so far, is the lowest point of the deck. I always want some form of artifact to either help with the commander or the sub-commander, or something to collect or want or be able to give away. This is just all ramp. And now the lands, finally on the lands of the deck. This is where usually some of the decks rather peak or fall. When it comes to this deck, there's 37 lands in total, which is quite a lot. But you get lands just like
Grim Backwoods Land, Llanowar Wastes, Necroblossom Snarl, Twilight Mire, Woodland Cemetery.
Now I'm happy to see that there's some cards that help. There is also a Filter Land, which again I've been praising for the last little while, because I really do think Filter Lands are at that point that they deserve in some or pretty much all of the precons. The rest of the lands are kind of just your generic stuff, so I kind of give this a 5 or 6 when it comes to the lands section alone, where it's nice, but there's nothing that's making me, out of all the sections of the deck, go, I really want this deck. If I was building a former deck like this, I would pretty much using it for parts, but this deck seems to be, in my personal opinion, maybe 6.8 overall. The commander and sub-commander are really unique, but I do find the context of the deck is not the best. There's not many cards I can think of that I'm like, yes, I want the Delirium thing. However, I do think it's mainly because the commander and sub-commander are so far apart, there's nothing really similar with them. One is Graveyard Recursion, and one is playing it to attack and make birds for people. So there's like no token doublers for the birds or ways to get benefits from the goading. So there's some cards that build tokens, which is not really the best for the commander, and then there's a lot of cards that just are generically really powerful and good and don't really help with the sub-commander. So I do find because of that, the deck doesn't really have a really good midpoint. If you were to buy this deck, I say pick one of the commanders, the sub-commander or the commander, and then just take out all the cards that doesn't work with, and then build a really powerful deck there. But my personal opinion, when it comes to the pre-con, I would like it to be very playable straight off the bat and then you upgrade it, but that's just me. When it comes to this is the first commander deck I've gone through from Duskmourn. I'm excited to talk about the set and the rest of the other decks. This is the first deck I've made a video on when it comes to all 4 commander decks on Duskmourn, and I do find it to be kind of the weakest. If there's any cards you would put in or take out, if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe and stuff like that we always usually ask for. And I made a video on the 4 commanders on their own, talking about how the decks might have been out, because by the time I made that video, the decks weren't released. So if you're interested in that video will be right here. I have a playlist of other Magic the Gathering videos here and a subscribe button here, and I want to say thank you for all the support, and I will see you all in the next video.